Sarah and her husband had arrived at the Daytona resort with simple intentions: use her mother's timeshare points before they expired and enjoy a relaxing getaway. What they hadn't expected was to become the stars of the most brutal timeshare sales encounter in company history. The opportunity had seemed straightforward enough: sit through a 90-minute timeshare presentation in exchange for a $250 Visa gift card. Easy money for what should have been a routine sales pitch. But from the moment they walked into the presentation room, Sarah knew this wasn't going to be the polished operation they'd experienced years before. Gone were the days of elegant breakfast buffets with chefs preparing fresh eggs Benedict and perfectly arranged fruit displays. Instead, they were greeted by a depressing sight: Otis Spunkmeyer muffins still sitting in their Costco boxes, a coffee machine that gurgled out something resembling burnt water, and inexplicably, a bowl of Doritos sitting on a folding table. A single bench served as seating for what was supposed to be a premium sales experience. The disorganization was immediately apparent. Staff members scurried around with panicked expressions, whispering urgently to each other. It became clear that their main presenter had simply failed to show up, leaving the entire operation scrambling to salvage the morning. After an awkward wait, Sarah and her husband were hustled directly to a cramped cubicle where they met their sales representative, a woman in her 30s with perfectly manicured nails and an attitude that instantly set Sarah's teeth on edge. The first red flag came when Sarah mentioned her profession. "Oh, I'm a nurse," she said conversationally, thinking it might help establish some rapport. The sales rep's response was like nails on a chalkboard. "Oh, I have a master's in psychology. I thought about just getting my nursing license because I already have a master's, so I could just get it and use it if I needed it." Sarah felt her jaw clench. The casual dismissal of her profession, the years of rigorous training, the life-or-death decisions, the emotional and physical demands, reduced to something you could just pick up as a backup plan. The implication that a psychology degree somehow made nursing easy was both insulting and ignorant, but the sales rep wasn't finished establishing her credentials for rudeness. Without any prompting whatsoever, she looked directly at both of them and announced, "Just to let you know, I have 3 children, so I am not here to argue with anyone. I get enough of that at home." The statement hung in the air like a challenge. Sarah exchanged a glance with her husband. Both thinking the same thing: this woman had just essentially declared war before the presentation even began. The unprofessional, defensive attitude was unlike anything they'd encountered in previous timeshare pitches. As the sales rep launched into her rehearsed spiel, it became immediately apparent that her mathematical skills were as poor as her people skills. When she casually asked, "How much do you think you would spend to stay in a resort like this? $500 or $600 per night?" Sarah couldn't help but laugh. "No, absolutely not," Sarah replied firmly. "We stayed in one just like this up in Pensacola for $120 a night on Airbnb." The sales rep's perfectly practiced smile faltered slightly. "But it didn't include all of the amenities you get as an owner," she countered, her voice taking on a slightly defensive edge. Sarah leaned forward, her years of dealing with medical insurance companies and hospital administrators having prepared her well for this moment. "You mean like being forced to pay annual maintenance fees that increase every year? Special assessments that come as nasty surprises that you have absolutely no control over? Having to pay membership fees to an exchange company just to use the points you've already paid for? Oh, and let's not forget the wonderful opportunity to lose points you can't use within their arbitrary timeframe." The color drained from the sales rep's face as Sarah systematically dismantled every aspect of the timeshare pitch with surgical precision. What had started as a routine sales presentation had turned into an educational seminar on consumer awareness. With Sarah as the uninvited professor, the sales rep, clearly rattled and unprepared for someone who had done their homework, made the fatal mistake of trying to argue with Sarah. Each point she raised was met with facts, figures, and real-world examples that exposed the fundamental flaws in the timeshare model. Sarah found herself in her element, using the same analytical skills that made her an excellent nurse to methodically tear apart every sales tactic. She addressed each misleading statement, corrected every mathematical error, and challenged every assumption with the patience of someone who had dealt with far more stressful situations in hospital corridors. The breaking point came when the sales rep, clearly overwhelmed and out of her depth, began to crack under the pressure. Her professional demeanor crumbled as Sarah continued to politely but firmly counter every argument with logic and evidence. In a moment that surprised everyone in the cubicle, the sales rep suddenly stood up, grabbed her designer purse, and with tears streaming down her face, declared that Sarah was a terrible person before storming out of the presentation area. The silence that followed was deafening. Other sales representatives turned to stare, and Sarah could hear whispered conversations from nearby cubicles. Within 30 minutes of walking into what should have been a 90-minute presentation, Sarah and her husband were walking out with their $250 gift card in hand. As they left the resort's sales office, Sarah felt a surge of satisfaction. She had stood up for herself, challenged misleading sales tactics, and refused to be intimidated by someone who had tried to dismiss her intelligence and profession from the very beginning. But now, looking back on that morning, Sarah finds herself questioning whether her approach was too harsh. Had she crossed a line from being an informed consumer to being unnecessarily cruel? Was the sales rep just doing her job? Or had her unprofessional comments warranted the response she received? What do you think about this encounter? Was Sarah justified in her approach, or did she go too far? Have you ever found yourself in a similar situation where standing up for yourself felt both satisfying and questionable? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below.